This is your best, hold on, it gets worse, stories. Story 1. My wife of 10 years left me in May because she never actually loved me. In August, I found out that before she actually filed for divorce in July, she had started dating a new guy who she fell in love with after just meeting him. While struggling to get through this, I was told by our 5-year-old that the new boyfriend had bought her underwear, that my ex had her model for a Snapchat and send to the boyfriend. Edit. The boyfriend bought the underwear for my daughter, and my ex recorded my daughter in the underwear and sent to her boyfriend. Story 2. My mum lit a bonfire and left it unattended, which set fire to the grass, which set fire to the garden shed, which set the hedge on fire, which blew up some gas canisters, which set fire to a rat nest, which spewed burning rats all over the yard, which the firefighters chopped in half with axes, which my dad had to clean up. Edit. This is absolutely 100% true, and although it left my brother with a nasty rat phobia, we survived intact. The smell of burning rat was the worst part. This story has also gone down in the annals of West Midlands Fire Service history. Thanks for the gold. Story 3. 2 of my friends had a falling out. I was dying to know what was going on between them, because they lived together and I felt like I was watching mommy and daddy get divorced. One friend was never around, and the other told me he honestly didn't know what going on. After a couple months, I finally got some one-on-one time with the other friend, who explained everything to me in detail. Basically, he asked if he could date the other friend's cousin, who emphatically said no. But since the other friend had dated his cousin without asking, he violated bro code and started seeing her anyway. In dating this girl, he came to find out that she and the other friend were more than just cousins. They had carried on a physical relationship for years. Basically, they fucked like bunnies whenever the family wasn't looking. But hold on, it gets worse. He was told this went on for 10 years. The girl was 22. Her cousin was 24. They had been having since middle school. But hold the on, it gets worse. The girl's father and her cousin's father are identical twins. Let that sink in for a second. Genetically, they are half-siblings. At that point in the story, I downed my beer and apologized for even asking about what was going on. I wish I never knew. As a follow-up, they no longer live together or speak to each other. I'm still really close with the free friend. I see the other friend in passing and we're still friends, but it's hard to look him in the eye. Edit. Oh, and the non-incestuous couple split up shortly after because he couldn't handle it. Not sure if she's still fucking her cousin or not. Story 4. A month ago, our ceiling fell down and caused a total mess. The room was destroyed. Nightmare. Then wasps started coming in. Lots of wasps. Turns out we had a few nests in our roof, and they were coming in the newly formed hole. So the exterminator came, sprayed his spray, and we watched as over the following few days, literally thousands of wasps fell from the vortex too, until they all died. Then our roofer came round to remove what was left of the rotten timber and plaster. I heard a blood-curdling scream and saw the poor man swarmed with wasps. Turns out the nest was bigger than the exterminator thought. It was over 3 feet long, and very much still active. He came and removed the nest, still crawling with wasps. Then our insurance company said they wouldn't cover any repairs as it was wear and tear, from a leak we had no way of knowing about. Then at the weekend my cat died and she was really fucking cute, and I'll never know joy again. Story 5. Last fucking April. My dog died. He was only about 7 years old, and an undiagnosed tumor ruptured and he died within a few hours. And then my dad's cancer started growing again. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And then my father-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. All within a few weeks. Edit. Thanks for the love, everyone. Reddit can be a really nice place at times. It's actually going pretty well these days. I still miss the dog, but our other dog has now become outrageously spoiled. My father-in-law ended up having a completely curable form of cancer, and while chemo sucks, he's going to make a full recovery. My dad switched doctors and treatments and his cancer is back to inactive. And my mom ended up having a cancer with a rare mutation that's treated by a single pill per day with minimal side effects. Story 6. My brother moved to Vermont to work at a ski resort to escape his stressful job in Philly. Before he even started his first day of work, he skied into a tree and broke his collarbone, leaving him unable to work there. He next found a job on a passenger train in Alaska working as a bartender. On one of his days off, he was playing basketball with coworkers and tore his ACL that he had torn years before in high school. After coming home for surgery all recover, he landed a job in Denver. He was mountain biking down a slope and managed to hit his head on a tree, which gave him a major concussion. Days later, his girlfriend and he were having lunch at a restaurant and he lost consciousness, fell out of his seat, and coded. His girlfriend performed CPR until paramedics arrived to take him to the hospital. Fortunately, he was resuscitated. Story 7. Coming home from work on a Friday night at around midnight with a six-pack of beer, it was from a bartending job, and my neighbors were partying. I was new to the apt complex, but I used to work with the neighbors, so I knew her and her. So instead of complaining about the raucous noise, I grabbed 2 beers and headed over to say, "Turn down the music or let me in." I banged on their door. Keep in mind there is a peephole in the app door, and someone who was not her opened the door. His name is Jamie, and I recognized him as the co-worker. Jamie is obviously naked. His crotch is hidden by the door, but that was it. Sweaty. I'm thinking I've intruded on some nefarious cheating and want no fucking part of it. I gasp out an apology and start making a beeline back to my apt. Somehow he donned pants and managed to chase me back and got to my apt door just as I got there. With his hand on my door, he says, "It's okay, you can join us. Just please have an open mind." I want no part of this, but I was the one that fucking knocked and spewed out my stupid line about wanting to join before I realized who I was speaking to. Now I felt fucking obligated to act nice because he was. As I was verbally protesting, he led me back down the hallway to her apt, holding me gently by my wrists. The beers were still in each hand, while saying softly over and over, "Just have an open mind." I was so unhappy. As we entered the apt, I saw it was filthy. I mean, full-on disgusting. So I thought maybe that's why I had to have an open mind, because the place looked like feral animals lived in it, and I was actually starting to feel a sense of relief. As he led me around a corner to the kitchen, I am absolutely in shock by the amount of filth everywhere. I see the kitchen floor. In fact, I could barely see it because it literally looked like no one had washed or swept it in years. As I was held mesmerized by the filthy floor, I hear in Gollum's voice, not joking, "Not her! Not her!" I raised my eyes above the kitchen floor to see where this voice is coming from. It's coming from my former coworker, who is sitting in the corner of the kitchen naked, except she is wearing a dog collar and some sort of leather dog-like body strap, leather, with her dried up and flappy boobies hanging limply through the leather straps. I always knew she was very skinny and unattractive, but seeing her sitting naked on that horrendously dirty floor and pointing at me with a long, super skinny, knobby arm and saying, seriously, just like Gollum, "Not her, not her." Umpky. I then take in the entire scene. It was just not her sitting on that floor. She was sitting beside her, who had obviously had thrown on some underwear while Jamie was collecting me. I realized that Jamie had brought me in to add to their disgusting threesome. These are not attractive people. Not that that would have made a difference, but still. I scream, "OMFG, no! No way! Not me! You're fucking right about that!" And I run back to my apt. I'm literally walking in confused circles in my kitchen when I hear a loud knock on my door and I yell, "Get the fuck away from me!" But the knocking continued. So with my door chain in place, I had the door open and there's Jamie leaning against my door frame and saying, "Shelly is really concerned with what you just saw." I don't remember what I screamed at him, but I screamed at him, then slammed the door. TLDR went to join a neighbor's party, turned into a Quentin Tarantino movie. Story 8. A friend of mine found out her husband was cheating. Huge blowout. And he moved out that night. The next morning, she woke up still shell-shocked and discovered her 10-year-old black lab had died in the kitchen. Story 9. Came home from work to find my fiancé in bed with someone else 3 months before the wedding. It gets worse. I'm a female, my ex-fiancé a male, the other person, also a dude. He was using me to hide his sexuality from his family, too afraid to come out of the closet. It gets worse. I came back the next day for my stuff. He pushed me through a wall and down a flight of stairs. I'm okay now. It was a while ago. Now have a very stable, safe, honest relationship with a great guy, who thankfully isn't cheating and isn't in the closet. Story 10. One night comes to mind. I took an hour-long train ride to San Francisco to meet some friends that were visiting. I ended up skating 6 miles in the wrong direction, then fell and skinned the back of my hand, finally met my friends, but could only hang out for a short time because it took me so long to get to them. Then, my phone was stolen at the train station, the train was full of rowdy drunk people, then the train hit someone and we were stopped for 3 hours. A drunk driver almost hit me on my walk home. Then I sharded a couple blocks from home. When I got home, I just sat in the shower with a beer. Story 11 told this before a little while ago. Back in April on my birthday, my family came over for dinner and cake. It was my sister, her husband, my niece, my parents, my brother, his then fiancé, and my GF. So we're having a nice time, eating hoagies, subs for those not from Philly, and my newly 2-year-old niece decided to jump on the couch. While my sister headed over to stop her, my niece slipped and with a loud bang, hit her head on the coffee table. My sister yelped and quickly scooped up her daughter. My niece was crying, and my sister was trying to calm her. Everything was quiet for a moment. Then my sister screamed. She rushed into the kitchen and I looked at my niece's head. There was blood. A lot of blood. We spin into a panic as my sister is hyperventilating. I quickly soak up the blood with a paper towel and notice only a very tiny cut. She didn't even need stitches. My father grabbed some ice and a rag and put pressure on the cut. My brother-in-law took my sister and niece to the hospital as the rest of us cleaned up a bit before heading over. So as we're cleaning, my 14-year-old deaf Cocker Spaniel decided he wanted a hoagie. I glance over to the table, only to see his face slowly reaching for one. We all notice and run over to stop him, but that hoagie was no more, only scraps remained. So as we were cleaning said scraps, my dog walks back into the kitchen, looks at us, and shits on the floor. What the? TLDR. My niece fell, cut her head, family freaks. Old dog takes this opportunity to eat a hoagie and promptly on the floor. My niece if fine, BTW. Story 1225. Or so years ago, I was working in a restaurant. I was working a double one day, and on my break, I called my answering machine to check my messages at home. First message is from my mom. The doctor has just told her she has stage 4 lung cancer. Next message is from my dad. They're divorced and live in different states. The doctor has just told him he has stage 4 lung cancer. So, not only are both my parents dying, but they're doing so at the same time 800 miles apart. That was the day life stopped being fun. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words. To answer some of your questions, yes, they both were smokers. They were from a time when everyone did. And yes, it was an awful time. My siblings and I just sort of got through it. It completely turned all our lives upside down, but it drew us all closer together. They both passed away within a year. Story 13. I once got my period at school and forgot to bring tampons with me. I had to text my dad, which was very awkward, to bring me a bunch of tampons at school. He brought them to the office and I picked them up. No sooner had I got back to class when I realized I had leaked. I could feel it. I asked to go to the bathroom and inspected the damage when I got there. It was like World War III in my pants. Apparently, I had gushed a good amount all at once, which meant there was blood clearly visible on my butt and down the leg of my jeans. I couldn't even go back to class like that. They were dark blue jeans, so I figured I could rinse them in the sink and you wouldn't be able to tell they were wet. I was very wrong. While rinsing, the jeans got the blood out. They were now completely soaked in the crotch. It looked like I sat on the toilet with my pants on and my hole fell in. The bell that ends first hour rang while I was still in the bathroom. I had to act fast, so I just soaked my pants entirely and put them back on. You couldn't tell they were wet, but my God, it felt awful. I then left the bathroom as fast as I could, hoping to run into my friend who had gym that day so I could borrow his gym shorts. I found him, and he was really confused as to why I was asking for his pants. I told him to touch my leg, and when he felt my soaked jeans, he just gave me a look. I told him not to ask, and he gave me his gym shorts. I had to go back to my first period class wearing shorts that were obviously too big, carrying my jeans, and explain to my teacher that I got sick. That would all be bad enough, but it gets worse. My friends and I would sit on the ground outside for lunch, and apparently I had sat in fresh gum. I didn't realize this until I stood to get up and felt a breeze on my. The shorts stuck to the ground and stretched when I got up, effectively making me moon everyone at lunch. After all was said and done, I had to explain to my friend that his shorts were covered in gum and I'd have to clean them before returning them. Fun fact: peanut butter really does get gum out of stuff, and it even works on gym shorts. Story 14. First job was third shift at a Taco Bell. It was very mismanaged. It was not uncommon to run out of things, especially third shift. One night, ding. Car: I would like a beef supreme burrito. Me: sorry sir, but we are currently out of beef. Car: okay, I will take steak then. Me: and steak? We currently have chicken and beans. Car: really? Me: yes, car. Okay. I will take chicken then. I would also like a large Baja Blast. Me, sigh. We are currently out of Baja Blast. Also, we are out of large cups. Normally, I would just give you the XL cups and say nothing, but we are out of those too. Cart, really? Wow. Um, what about 2 medium lemonades? Me. This guy is really desperate for bellman. Okay, no intention of charging for drinks for putting up with car. And can I have some fire sauce too? Me. Car. What do you have? Me. Mild car? Why are you open? Me. I have no idea. Car. Okay, I will take the mild then. That will be all. Me. Thank you. Your total is percent total percent cent pull around. Give food drinks, drives off. Ding car 2 or many more that night. Can I have beef? Whatever the. Me. Sigh. Story 15. Copy-pasted from my Tifu post because, good God, if I ever had a story that fit this bill, this one is it. You know how everyone has that one party story? The one that, no matter how hard you try, will never be topped? Well, I'm a second-year college student who attends a university that likes to go by the mantra of work hard, play hard, and this is that story. A couple of weeks ago, I was invited to a pretty big annual event at my school that had a reputation of having a pretty wild after-party. My buddy, let's call him Dewey, had just finished his semester and I hadn't, so he was pretty bored back in our hometown. I figured that, since he had nothing to do back at home, I would bring him to the after-party and he could crash back at my dorm for the night, have a good time and all that. And we did. We had a fucking fantastic time. Even made it back to my dorm in one piece somehow. I thought we just went back and crashed, but apparently some serious went down after the party that I didn't hear about until later. And by then there was nothing I could do except laugh and think, there's no way that happened. So fast forward to the morning after. It's windy as all outside and Dewey and I are sitting at a dining hall having some delicious hangover food. Suddenly, this conversation comes up. Dude, I did something last night. What did you do? Something bad. Dewey, what did you do? Then he hits me with what actually happened that night after we left the party. Apparently, I was too blacked out to remember, but he definitely wasn't. And once he started recalling the story, I began to remember the shit show that transpired afterwards. To this day, whenever I tell this story, people don't believe me, until I show them. But I'll get to that later. So we leave the party, stumble our way back to the dorm, and get into the elevator, since I live on the 7th floor. We get out of the elevator without incident and kind of just plop down in my floor's lounge, which was thankfully empty. Seems all right. But then Dewey throws up. Fucking. Everywhere. On the couch, on the study tables, on the floor, on the walls. No surface was safe from his wrath. At this point, I'm already disgusted and thinking, oh, he's my guest, so I'm responsible for this, housing probation, here I come. But then it got worse. It got so much worse. After the puke apocalypse, he then says he has to go. So I hand him my ID card so he can swipe into the bathroom, which I should mention is a mere 20 feet away from us. But he turns me down and says, nah man, I gotta go now. Like right now. And it's gonna be a big one. Dewey then opens my lounge window, sticks his butt cheeks out, and proceeds to release the Kraken all over the side of my precious dormitory building. And when I say release the Kraken, I mean it. The immediate assault to my senses told me that it was easily the most disgusting toilet slammer I've ever been witness to in my entire life, including my own. Imagine every terrible you've ever taken multiplied by the fiery passion of 1,000 burning suns. It was like watching the slime fall and splatter everywhere on the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. The sound it made was awful too, like something just died, and these were its final gurgles. Just the fucking smell alone probably could have killed most small animals. He finishes unleashing his unholy intestinal sewage all over the side of my building while I sit there just agape, but too drunk to do anything about it. Then we nonchalantly stroll back to my room and promptly pass out. Back to the present. I'm horrified, disgusted. Never in my life would I have imagined I would be privy to anything like this. But hey, what's done is done. No harm done, right? Wrong. I make my way back to my building and ride the elevator up so that I can relax and nurse my hangover. In the elevator, I hear this conversation between two girls. I can't believe someone did that to our lounge. Yeah, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. It smelled pretty bad in there too. The cleaning lady says it's either really bad throw up or something way worse. Do they know who did it? I don't know, but they must have been living higher up to hit floor 4. At least it didn't get inside or anything. Now I'm curious, and I think I know exactly what happened. So I get off on the 4th floor, enter their lounge, and lo and behold, I see. Yep, that's Dewey's. Smeared all over the window of the lounge 3 floors below me. Apparently, some people were peacefully studying at 3 in the morning the night that this went down when, all of a sudden, wham! Dewey's butt babies slammed into their window hard enough to make the glass shake. The wind must have hurled it sideways mid-descent, causing his work of art to splatter onto their window with a resounding thud. I take one good look and smell, snap the picture, and flee to my room practically dying from laughter. Then I tell pretty much all of our friends back at home because, come on, how do you not tell everyone about that? I didn't tell any of my college friends, though. I don't need that kind of blood on my hands, and for good reason. Admin heard about it and basically put out a warrant for the capture of whoever did the deed or for anyone who helped them do it. I basically had to be on my toes for the rest of the semester in fear of being charged as an assistant to this assailant of justice. People from other dorms eventually heard about it and began sullying the good name of my building, calling it Shit Central and other hilarious names. They didn't just forget about him either. For the rest of the year, the Phantom Shitter became something of a legend. No one knew who it was, but they know what he did and what he's capable of. His legacy lives on, in me, in you, but mostly in the smears he left trailing down the side of my dormitory. Those are a little bit harder to wash off. TLDR brought a friend to a college party, went down, stained my building's reputation, and my building. Story 16. A series of unfortunate events. Starts with 3 kids losing their parents in a fire and a 14-year-old girl being forced to marry a creepy older dude who has no qualms about murder, against her will, just so he can get his hands on their family fortune. And there are 12 more books to go. Say what you want about them, but at least they're not false advertising. Story 17. Oh, I have one. My sister was driving one day and we decided to stop for bubble tea and fried chicken. It's a thing. Having just gotten my driver's license and feeling lazy, I suggested a game of rock, paper, scissors. Loser gets out and buys the bubble tea and fried chicken. I won, so I moved over to the driver's seat and waited. However, I was double parked at an active garage, and as fate would have it, the door started opening. At that moment, I made the fateful decision to drive off and double back. This was before GPS and I was unfamiliar with the roads, so I drove up around 7 blocks and not seeing any easy way to double back, decided that my best course of action was to make a U-turn. At night, on a busy main road. You can see where this is going now. Anyways, I pulled over and waited for an opportunity to make a U-turn. Finally, I had an opening and gassed it. Nope. Cue loud screeching noise and sound of metal ripping. Turns out there was a car in my blind spot and I shredded the entire passenger side of the car with my stupid idea. I jumped out of the car and so did the lady in the other car. In a full-on panic, I told the lady that the car was my sister's and I had to go get her from the coffee shop a few blocks away. Without waiting for a response, I left the car and ran like back to the store. Out of breath, I told my sister that I had gotten into an accident and she hurried with me back to the site. It turns out the unfortunate lady I had hit had just gotten her car from the dealership. The plates weren't even on yet, and worst of all, she was only 2 blocks away from home. Talk about unlucky, right? But wait, there's more. In my hurry and panic, I had forgotten to turn off the headlights to my sister's car. The car battery was drained and we had to call my aunt to come jump the car since neither of the cars had jumper cables. As if that weren't enough, I then proceeded to accidentally spill the bubble tea all over the driver's seat. Needless to say, my sister was not happy that day. The cops never came. We waited 2 hours and ended up going to the precinct to just file a report. Icing on the cake, we left the fried chicken back at the bubble tea place. Story 18. I was best friends with a girl for 10 years. She got a new boyfriend who was pretty chill, and all 3 of us hung out a lot. Well, she gradually starts changing and started acting shorter and shorter, me to the point that nearly everything she said to me was passive-aggressive. This goes on for a couple months. I try talking to her. She won't admit anything's wrong. So one day she acts especially hostile while we're out with friends, and I take off because I'm done dealing with it for the night. I send her a pretty long text attempting to lay out what she did and said to me that I felt really hurt me. I told her how she's been changing and I really felt uncomfortable with how she was treating me. She had her mom respond to me. We're both adults? But wait, it gets worse. 3 weeks go by with no contact. I see her at a restaurant when I join our friends for dinner. She won't even talk to me, just death glares. I go home that night and call a friend to confide in, and she tells me that my best friend has been telling everyone we know that I am intentionally trying to break up her relationship because I want her boyfriend. I was shocked mostly because this never came up and also because I had no interest in her boyfriend as I am, still mentally damaged over an abusive ex of my own. I have no interest in dating anyone, especially my best friend's boyfriend. So I tried talking to her, and she acted like it was all true and told me she was faultless in this and that I was a manipulative little princess. I just wanted her to stop treating me Lyle for no reason, but hindsight is 2020. She won't speak to me now and hates me because her relationship fell apart due to her being a massive and demanding her not hang out with me at all even though we work together and have the same friend group. 10 years. Fuck her. Story 19. This is the true story of my ex and why I decided to ditch America and live abroad. So, my ex-fiancée, let's call her Emily, was always jealous of my best friend, Jenny. Emily was jealous of every woman who came in contact with me, at work, in my neighborhood, etc. But I had a long platonic relationship with Jenny, and I wasn't willing to stop being friends with her. I sometimes snuck off for beers with Jenny, but never cheated. It wasn't even on my mind. Anyway, I came home from one of these beer nights to discover Emily hacked my email password and saw my emails making plans to meet Jenny. Then that night, Emily tried to kill herself with a steak knife. But oh, it gets worse. We had a huge fight, but things calmed down and we tried to return to normalcy. Nope. One night while playing card games with some friends at our place, I dropped a card under the table and realized that Emily and another friend were playing footsies under the table. It wasn't until he put his hand on her thigh that I put my cards down and punched him square in the face. Pow! Broken nose. This friend, let's call him Chad, was a big source of comfort for Emily while she and I were patching things up. Sometimes they came home at dawn, but I was asking Emily to trust me with Jenny. I could certainly extend that trust to Chad. Anyway, days later, Chad threatened to file charges, but mutual friends talked him out of it. But, oh, it gets worse. At the time, I was living in a 2-story home with my best friend from college and his own fiancée. They took the top floor, and Emily and I and my dog took the bottom. My best friend kept his cats on the second floor because I'm terribly allergic to cats, but he saw his chance. He asked me to move out so I could take my dog. His reasoning, oh, Emily's from Ohio, and your mom's relatively close by. You could go back to your mom's, but Emily can't just pick up and leave. I severed contact with him immediately and never looked back. But, oh, it gets worse. A week goes by and I'm completely miserable, but then comes Emily's phone call. She had a miscarriage. She had no idea she was even pregnant. I know now that I dodged a huge bullet, but at the time I was a mess of emotions. Whose was it? I ask Emily. She tells me she doesn't know. But, oh, it gets worse. Emily's mom drives up to my mom's place, from Ohio to New York, banging and screaming at our front door, threatening that she's gonna sue for mental anguish leading to the miscarriage. I decide I had enough of America and that I needed to go explore the world and just learn how to enjoy things again. So now I'm in Japan. TLDR edit. Fiancé thinks I'm cheating. Attempts suicide. Discover fiancé was cheating all along. Lost my home, lost my best friend from college, lost my fiancé, then learned fiancé lost what might have been my kid. Fled America, then found myself in Japan. Story 20. Not really bad per se, but I love this story. When I was in college, Snoop Dogg came to perform at our campus. His team requested his dressing room be furnished with couches, a TV, and an Xbox 360. Can do. We take the couches and TV from our university coffee shop, and the 360 is loaned to us by a student on the events team. Well, Snoop wraps up his show, packs up, and heads out. And when we're taking the couches back into the coffee shop, the student who loaned the 360 runs in a panic, asking if we've seen the system. We hadn't. He checked under the couch cushions, all over the dressing room, etc. But nothing. Seems it was inadvertently packed up with Snoop's stuff. We call the team over and over but can't get through because they're out clubbing or something. Snoop stole some kid's Xbox 360. I thought that was hilarious enough, and it was my go-to story whenever the topic of Snoop came around. But since it seemed like an accident and I didn't want to slander the dog, I cooled on it after a while. A few years later, I'm in a friend's basement when another friend comes in and says, "Guys, you'd never believe this, but Snoop Dogg played a show at my friend's college and he stole his PS4. I just about died laughing. Snoop Dogg habitually steals gaming systems from college students. Edit. People keep paging Snoop. Snoop, if you read this, I am a huge fan and in no way think you're involved in this. Story 21, I got pregnant from IVF, but the baby passed away at 6 months. My husband and I decided to pursue Chinese adoption, but both parents had to be 30. I was 30, but hubby was 28. 5. Sigh, great. More waiting. I start working on the mountain of necessary paperwork involved, though I'm still grieving the loss of my daughter. I had all the paperwork organized in a huge plastic portable file. The file was in my car, as I was going to get stuff notarized after work. While I'm at work, my car is stolen. Yep, the car with all my paperwork. Paperwork that included our social security numbers and all our tax returns. 2 days later, the car is found. Total loss. Shot up with bullet holes. Luckily, the paperwork was there. I had a bag full of birthday gifts for my nieces and nephews in the trunk, not visible from the outside, as I was going to drop them off at my sister's. You guessed it. The thieves took the gifts. The only thing they left was the adoption paperwork and a Bible. So, I get a new car the following week, and one night a cop pulls me over. He claims I didn't come to a complete stop at a stop sign, but I seriously did. He asks for my insurance info, but I left it on the kitchen counter, as I had just gotten this new car the day before. I explained the situation, but he was and still gave me a sizable ticket. Several months pass, and I'm almost done completing all the adoption paperwork. Yay! I wake up in the morning to get ready to ship it all to the consulate, and I see that my a-hole cat had jumped onto the kitchen island and literally shredded our marriage certificate. There was no way to even tape it together. The even bigger problem is that we got married in Jamaica, so we had to contact the Jamaican government to get a certified copy. This delayed the adoption process by several more months. Throughout all of this, I'm still grieving the daughter I lost, and it felt like everything was going wrong. I just couldn't catch a break. This was in 2003. Flash forward to now, and we are the proud parents of our 2 incredible daughters from China. All the pain and aggravation had a happy ending. Story 22. Husband of 6 months that I've been supporting through lots of mental health issues while also trying to do grad school, realizes that he, now she, is trans. Take a leave of absence from school, get a job so that I can start supporting myself, start going to couples therapy. She's dead set on HRT and I'm not a lesbian. Decide to separate when the lease up, and as far as I'm concerned, life may as well be over. That was the winter. That spring, I finally convinced an urgent care doctor that being in debilitating, can't stand up straight, levels of pain once a month isn't normal. He orders a CT scan. Next day, I find out I have ovarian tumors and get a referral for an oncologist. After an unsuccessful biopsy and 2 weeks of uncertainty, I have an up-down open laparotomy and find out that it's endometriosis. So I don't have cancer, I just have an incurable, barely treatable chronic disease that will cause me pain until menopause and probably after. Also, my soon-to-be ex refused to come to the hospital so that she wouldn't have to deal with my parents, and while recovering prattled on non-stop about how awesome estrogen was supposed to be. So, from happily newlywed grad student to divorced, barren, depressed dropout in a year. ETA. I appreciate the comments so far. One point I want to add. This was all several years ago. I've had 2 more open surgeries since. Laparoscopic ablations, excisions are awesome, but I grow big cysts that can't be removed that way. I've also had an appointment with a fertility specialist where a very nice doctor shoved an ultrasound probe in a very uncomfortable place for a very long time. The consensus between her and my surgeon is that babies are not happening. The uterus is lifted and absolutely covered in scar tissue. Even if I could miraculously conceive, trying to carry to term would be really dangerous. Also, I'm approaching late 30s and past the age where I would even try to have a kid. I made my peace with it a long time ago.